I can hear you guys great. Can you hear me?
Hear you like you're sitting in front of us.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking the choice of red generation. I'm drinking a red, white, and blue, baby. Pepsi Cola. Pepsi Blue. Yeah, they are drinking some kind of beer. I don't know. You know me. Yeah, they all look alike, taste alike to me.
Listen, I saw the beer and I thought he's drinking a beer. Maybe his legs are shaved too. Things happen.
No, but it's funny because we were just talking about that. There are obviously three guys in front of you. Can you guess which out of the three has shaved legs?
Really, he's guessing out of two.
That's true, because you already know I don't have shaved legs.
Fred? Is Fred shaved? There you go.
Yeah.
John,
What's
the theory, John?
The light's not reflecting off of his legs right now.
John, why are you slower?
Ran out of money to buy razors.
I tell you what, we'll do rides together, Paul, and on more than one occasion, I've had to pull a tick off of John, where ticks don't stick to my legs, man.
That's another reason. There's another reason, Donald. We didn't even think of that one.
You can come up with a lot of reasons, and they're all the same. It's vanity when you want it all. It doesn't matter.
Guys, welcome to Black and Tan. Why don't we let them introduce themselves and go from there? Yeah.
All right. I'll start. Fred Powell, co-founder and co-director for the Maryland Interscholastic Cycling League, which is just the Maryland chapter of NICA.
I'm John Posner, also co-founder and co-director for the Maryland NICA League.
So cool to have you guys. So how long have you guys been involved with NICA?
This is our 7th year of involvement. It's our 6th season, but there's a long build-up process to getting the league onto its feet. So we worked on it well ahead of that first race season.
And how did you, John, what's your story? How do you get involved? Why are you doing this?
The NICA story?
Yeah.
I can tell this one.
You should crack this open, yeah.
So when you join NICA, they always tell you to understand your NICA why. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you involved? And my NICA why predates NICA. So we go back to 2004. I was living in Alabama and working at a bike shop, and sold a bike to a kid. And it was right in Pelham, so right near Oak Mountain State Park. So any old time mountain bikers remember the bump and grind race at Oak Mountain. Sold a bike to a teenage kid, asked him if he was going to go ride Oak Mountain. He said, no, like, this is just to get around until I get my driver's license. And I was like, that kind of sucks. Sold another bike to a kid the following week. I got the same story. So I approached the shop owner and, said, hey, can I start like a junior mountain bike club? And again, this is 2004. I'm in my 20s, legally an adult, but I wasn't an adult back then. And she was like, yeah, sure. And I think it was a matter of 2 weeks. I had 14 kids who were interested in doing it, 6 or 7 that would show up regularly on Sunday group rides. And there was one Sunday where, and this is where my Michael Y comes in, it's just that there was one Sunday where mom dropped her kid off. Usually she'll drop him off and wave goodbye, come back 2 hours later to pick him up. And this time she got out of the car, started walking towards me, and she starts crying. And I was, I'm like in my 20s, I'm not really an adult yet. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I'm not prepared for this, what's happening? And she was just thanking me for setting up this club, because that's all her son talked about now was rides with me and his new friends. So I started crying. I'm hugging this strange woman in the middle of this parking lot in Alabama, and it hit me like a lightning bolt that there was something else happening and something else going on. That it wasn't just me taking kids for a mountain bike ride in the woods, that there was the mentorship component to it. And I tell people, I was like, that's the most fulfilled I've felt my entire life. And I just knew I had to do that for the rest of my life. And then fast forward to 2014 when I found out about NICA. I reached out to NICA and asked, like, has anybody from Maryland reached out? Because I'd like to get involved. And they said no. They sent me the packet for, if you're interested in starting a league, this is what you need to do. And it was overwhelming. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, that is a full-time gig. I can't do that. Then in 2016, they emailed again and said, hey, somebody else from Maryland's reached out who's interested. Maybe you guys should connect and get something going. And that name was John Posner. And I was like, son of a gun. I knew of him. Like, I didn't know John.
Oh, okay.
We raced against each other, but we never we worked in separate franchises, right?
Okay.
So like we just ran in different circles, and just by chance I met him at a rec coaches appreciation night in Ellicott City, and I was like, hey man, I heard you're interested in starting NICA. I said, I'm here to help, and he's like, absolutely, I think I'm going to quit my job. And that was what November.
You want to meet this Tuesday?
Yeah, and we've met every week since. That was 2016, November 2016.
Let me tell you how serious that is, because in our area, at that time, I think was that 2016 you said?
November 2016.
Okay, so there was a period of time where there weren't a lot of bike shops in our area, not like it is now. And John worked for Race Dates, and John was like the shit when it came to the bike shop guy. Like, everybody who was in this area, especially in the mountain bike scene, they would go to John Posner. So for him to say, I'm going to quit my job, that says a lot, because he had it locked down in this area. No bullshit. He had it locked down in this area. He was the man to go to when it came to anything, especially mountain biking, cycling in general, but mountain biking. So for him to say, I'm gonna dive full in and quit my job, that says a lot, fans. That says a lot.
And see, what I want to know, who won the race? When Fred said we raced each other, who won the race?
Yeah, no, we raced against each other. John has documented evidence of a race where he finished 3 spots ahead of me.
There was like 9 spots.
He finished 9th, I finished 12th. It was at a Michaud race. So that's the only documented evidence.
All right.
So, yeah.
Why don't we step back, because there might be people who are listening or will listen who don't know what NICA is. Like, what is it? How do I get involved? Like, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we should back it up a little bit on NICA. NICA is the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. It was born in Berkeley, California in 2009. It was the brainchild of a guy named Matt Fritzinger, who had this idea that a high school mountain bike racing league could catch some wind in the sails and become a thing. So he started it. It was originally just a NorCal high school cycling league, and that grew into the idea that this could be scaled. I don't remember who the second league was. Maybe it was Colorado. They were one of the first, but it really did catch fire quickly. By the mid-2010s, NICA was growing at an unbelievable rate of like 20 to 30% every year nationwide, and they just kept adding leagues every year. So around the time Fred and I got interested, it was really steaming along pretty well. NICA started really just as kind of what I called it, a high school racing league, but since then it's really evolved tremendously into much more of a holistic character development program that uses bike racing as one of the tools, as kind of one of the proving grounds. So it's a pretty great organization. There's a big stewardship component. They've got 5 core values: fun, inclusivity, equity, community, and respect is the last one. So they really build everything around those core values and around the central theme of like risk management and safety, since we're taking other people's kids mountain biking. And with those foundations, it's a really fun place to be, really fun organization.
How many kids now in Maryland?
Nationwide or Maryland? Maryland, we were almost 750 last year. 790? Oh, almost 800.
Wow. Where did you start in Fred, in 2014, sending in the paperwork, how many kids started the program at first?
Well, like we said, we started, 2016 is when we made the connection. 2017 was kind of like that build year, launching into the first season in 2018.
2017, I think we had 220.
220 some kids,
Wow,
yeah.
That's actually more than I thought you were going to say.
Yeah.
We had hoped to have 100
Yeah.
For our first season.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's a good goal to shoot for. And yeah, we were blown away.
Yeah, we've been growing about 20% every year. Last year, we kind of pumped the brakes on growth only because we would soon grow out of our venues.
Yeah.
But yeah, we expect to be at 800 plus this year.
So I went to an event that they had at in Patapsco and in the pick hall area of Patapsco, and was completely blown away with what I saw. So I had gone to other big events, or so I thought were big events in Patapsco, but when I came up on their NICA race that they had going, it made everything else that was going on in Patapsco that I had seen up until that point look just small, including all the Patapsco races that I've done, everything that's going on in Patapsco. I saw a field full of tents and kids and families and cars. It was incredible, to the point that I said, look, I've been involved with NICA before from my shop side of things, but I haven't really been involved the way I think I need to be involved. And I told the guys, I was like, look, I want in next year, not just because I think it'd be great advertising for Patapsco bicycles, but I think it's just it's like he said, like Fred said, it's kind of your calling. You see yourself and you get overwhelmed with what's going on, and you just want to be a part of it. There was a DJ in the woods turning. I mean, it was incredible. If your kids aren't involved with NICA and they ride bikes, they're missing out. That's all I'm saying.
Wait, I want to pause. If your kids haven't been involved with NICA, and they've never ridden bikes, they still are missing out. This isn't just for kids who already are riding
100%.
It's we're really focused on this organization being the mouth of the funnel and the entryway, the portal into the mountain bike world, the mountain bike life.
The bike life, not just
Yeah.
mountain biking. We were just talking. There's kids that came from NICA that are racing in the Tour de France right now.
I wanted to ask John, that he brought it up, is there a kid that you met 6 years ago who is now schooling you on the trails? And there might be more than one, right?
Oh yeah, there are too many to name. Yeah, there are too many to name. I'm almost 50 myself, so there's that. But that aside, you know, the thing we were talking about a little bit earlier here, this provides the opportunities for kids to get into the sport and progress tremendously way earlier than any of us ever were able to do. And the opportunities are there's so many more of them than there ever were when we were young and coming into the sport. So it's just going to be an unavoidable side effect that the talent level will rise, and there's going to be some real hot dog riders, boys and girls, that are blowing the doors off the people who used to be the big dogs around here.
Yeah. The level that the kids are at with the guidance that they have, with the equipment that they're riding, with the training that they have, everything. The fast that when we were young, and we were saying this also, when we were young, and we used to have people that we would say, okay, this person is our level of fast. We all look at this one person and say, okay, that guy's fast. The kids now, and we're talking like maybe pro riders, the kids now in the NICA level are faster than those guys that we once thought were fast. And it's like, it's amazing to watch. You know, it's crazy. They just have an organization like NICA that we never had it. We all got to take advantage of it. So,
What's the typical time? What's the typical time commitment for a kid? Like, how many days a week do you practice? How many events? When are the events? What does that look like?
You take as much as you want. There's no commitment. And that's one of the cool things. There's no tryouts. There's no cuts. If you want to be on the team, sign up, pay the fees, you're on the team. If you can only show up once a month, you will be welcomed and appreciated, and people will be overjoyed to have you at the practice once a month. If you're chomping at the bit and you want to go to 2 practices a week and do a heavy ride on the weekends, your team is probably going to be able to accommodate that, and you can do it all. If you're chomping at the bit times 1,000 and you want to practice 4 times a week, you can make relationships with neighboring teams and ride with those teams at practices. Kids and coaches can float between teams. So there's no minimum commitment. There's no required, devotion to the racing. You don't even have to race. You can just do the practices. All the events are, there are non-racing components, so it's pretty accessible to everybody.
Can you, if you have a parent and they're watching from the sideline, can parents get involved and become coaches?
Was that queued up, man?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
Yeah, so we have a multi-tiered, leveled coach program, level 1, level 2, level 3, and parents are encouraged, to at a very minimum become a level 1 coach, so you can ride with your kids at the practice. How many other sports can say that or offer that? How many parents do you see out on a basketball court or on a soccer field with their kids? None. Unless they're the actual coach, but right. Yeah,
I want to just point out too, this is as much for the coaches as it is for the student athletes. We hear just as many stories from coaches about how this is a balm to their lives, and they have an escape when they're at the practices, and they get so much out of seeing the student athletes progress. And the coaches get together for group rides. Coaches do bike trips together, go to happy hours together. There's a whole social scene across the coaches and parents of these teams that's a whole extra level.
Yeah, and the other aspect to that is you get entire families getting involved. So it's not just one child entering NICA. It's usually they'll bring a sibling along who starts racing. Then both parents end up buying bikes and riding with the kids.
Right.
So if you're a bike shop owner, you're not just getting one kid, you're getting an entire family in most cases. We hear stories about families building vacations around ride spots now where they never did that before.
Sure. We have a young guy who works for us. His name's Gus. Gus and his family they all started cycling basically around NICA.
Well, they were in BYC before they were in NICA.
Okay, so that's true. That's true.
Yeah, no, Gus and his family have been involved in cycling for quite a while, but they absolutely jumped onto NICA 100% when we got launched. Gus has been a standout.
Right. What's your background in cycling? How did you get started? What did you do?
In cycling?
Yeah.
Background? So as a kid, I grew up playing traditional stick and ball sports like all kids. But there was an aspect of all of that. I was an above average athlete, but I think it was middle school where I discovered skateboarding and punk rock music. And the individual sport of skateboarding really opened my eyes, and I'm like, am I doing the right thing with all this stick and ball stuff? And I remember reading an article in 1984, Sports Illustrated, about Team 711. So my introduction to cycling was through the road scene and through the Team 711 being the first American team to ride the Tour de France. Fast forward 2 years, and then I'm reading an article about Greg LeMond winning the Tour de France. And that's what started that fire. That's what lit the fuse. And then through stick and ball sports, my knees started going bad in high school. And I remember my senior year, I guess it was the summer before my senior year, had really bad knees, and the doctor told me, you should be riding an exercise bike to strengthen up the muscles around that kneecap. And I was like, can I get a real bike? And he was like, absolutely. And being from the skateboard scene, I I didn't buy a road bike because I knew I would never talk any of my skateboard friends into buying a road bike. So it ended up being a Bridgestone MB6 mountain bike, and we all got mountain bikes, and it's been downhill from there. Brent Anderson, Pat Vaughn.
And let me tell you, so me and Fred, we go back way back. We actually went to high school together. Skateboarded together, everything. Like we have a handful of friends that we all kind of grew up, and we were all riding together and racing together. And I honestly, I have to say, would you have ever thought that you and I would be in the scenario we're in right now? I'm interviewing you about cycling. Like this is so crazy.
So I didn't even think back then that we would even be friends, Don, because the very first mountain bike race I entered, Don was also in it, and he passed me on the last lap doing a wheelie. Still haven't forgiven him for it.
Yeah.
I vowed, I was like, this is never going to happen again.
It comes up every now and then. Listen, it's like every chance that I get to tell people that I beat Mark Frazier in a race. It's the same thing. I'm like, but here's the thing. So Fred was also the first person I knew that started taking training seriously. And after I passed him in the wheelie, I never beat Fred in another race again. Fred kicked my ass in every race. He was the first person that I know that got on a training program called the Bible. And he started reading the training Bible. And it was like one time, I think we were riding in Loch Raven Reservoir. And Fred was just hammering me. I couldn't hold onto his wheel. And I was like, dude, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I've been reading this training Bible. I'm like, yeah, I got to go start and read this damn Bible.
All right, horses for courses, right? Because I may have gotten him on the hills, but following him on the downhill, I remember that same ride at Loch Raven, I see Don hopping a log, and I'm like, oh, I can hop this log. So I hopped the log, but then beyond that log was a huge gap with another log on the other side, and it was by the grace of God that I made that.
Look,
but it was only because I was following.
Not everybody gets that grace. Not everybody gets that grace, Fred. Just so.
Listen. We shared a lot of things in life after high school. During high school, I was more of a thuggish nerd guy. Like I was not. I wouldn't call myself a bully, but I definitely wouldn't walk away from any fights. So a lot of guys like Fred and those guys were like, yeah, I can't really kick it with Don because there's probably gonna be something that breaks out. But cycling changed my life. Cycling for me, getting into bikes got me away from that. I wouldn't say that I was a violent person, but like I said, I wouldn't walk away from the violence. If violence came knocking, I would let it in every single time. So, but cycling gave me an avenue to get away from that. And I think with NICA, it gives a lot of other kids avenues to get away from a lot of things that they may be involved in that are negative. That's why it's so important to introduce these people to sports like NICA or like cycling with venues like NICA that have good mentors, that have people they can look up to, that have people that they can talk to, and hold them accountable for some of the things that they did. We didn't have that when we were coming up.
John, same question to you. Give us your background, cycling.
Man, my background, I went to Jacksonville University in Florida out of high school, was recruited to be the lacrosse goalie there. When I got there, the lacrosse coach had absconded, and so there wasn't a team that year, so I didn't end up playing lacrosse. I ended up falling in with a group of guys that lived on the same dorm hall that I did, and we rode mountain bikes. We rode bikes all over the campus. We would go out to a park out near the Jacksonville shore and ride there, and we would ride on the ROTC course. It just made me fall in love with bikes. At the end of that semester, I wrecked my knee playing capture the flag at night, and had to have knee surgery that summer. And part of my rehab also was, hey, you should ride a bike. So my dad took me to Princeton Sports. We got a bike, and I started riding it. It was like I had woken up. It was just so much fun, like flying through the woods, the sounds, the sights, the smells, everything. And I ended up moving out that summer of my parents' house, got a place with a roommate, and the two of us just raced our faces off for like a couple of years straight. I got a job at a bike shop at Race Pace in Reisterstown so that I could support my bike racing habit. That led me to another job at Mount Washington Bike Shop, Joe's Bike Shop. After a few years there, I was working with the Trek Volkswagen East Coast regional team. I started as the team mechanic and eventually was the team manager. And then that job led into an offer from Trek to be the Trek World Cup mountain bike team manager. So for a couple seasons in the early 2000s, I ran the Trek World Cup team. We traveled the globe. We raced all of the U.S. races and several races in Europe. Did the Port William a couple times. It was definitely a dream life. I had a family event, the death of a sibling that occurred suddenly and unexpectedly in December of 2005. And so that really interrupted my life a little bit, and I didn't continue that Trek job. I ended up back at Race Pace the following year, and I was in bike retail ever since at Race Pace. I loved it. I could not think of a better place for a young person to have a coming of age than in a bike shop. It was magical for me. Being so deep in all that, I heard about NICA when it came into existence, kind of tracked it on the back burner for a while. An old racing friend from Pennsylvania, Mike Kuhn, reached out to me a few times and said, "Hey man, I've got this thing cooking up here in Pennsylvania. It's a NICA league, and you would really be into this." Yeah, okay, yeah. I was definitely had plenty on my plate at the bike shop. I guess it was 2016. He got me to attend their finals, and that was at Fairhill, where we have several of our Maryland events. I just remember arriving and seeing that field like the way Donald just described it. You roll up and you see how much there is, how big it is, and the level of production, and you're bowled over. I was smitten. The following spring, they invited me to the Pennsylvania Leader Summit, which is sort of a one-stop shop training event that NICA leagues hold to certify new coaches and to get people accredited for leading clinics and things. I attended that with the local Trek rep, Adam Lewandowski. It was up in Lancaster, and on the drive home from day one, I turned to Adam and said, "Hey, I think I'm going to have to put some notice in at Race Pace. This must happen for Maryland." And he said, "Yes, I think you should do that. That's a great idea. I'll help you." So I put in 6 months notice at the shop, and had the tremendous fortune of finding Fred at this girls rec soccer appreciation party because I had coached my daughter's soccer team, and his wife runs the rec soccer program. And so, yeah, that was it. We've been off into races ever since. It just felt like my mission. I don't know. I don't have a story like Fred to identify my why. I honestly feel like I've heard so many other NICA why stories, and like a little piece of every one of those resonates with me to some degree. And so I like to tell other people's why stories because I don't have one.
I think your why story is that's who you are. Yeah. I mean, that's literally, it's almost like it was destined.
I can't argue with that because when I worked at Joe's Bike Shop, I would attend races with a big placard that said "Neutral Service provided by Pods," and I would just hang out at races and do neutral service for people because it's really fun and rewarding. And we would do tech support for the Howard County. They had bike adventure camps, the Howard County Park and Recs program, and Race Pace had a contract to do service. So on these camp mornings, there'd be like 60 kids. All their parents pulled their bikes out from under the wood pile tarp that morning, and they drop them off, and they're like, "All right, make this ready for a week of riding." So working on kids' bikes is just
so that's your why. Well, can you tell Fred and Paz our why when it comes to Black and Tan and what we want to do with Black and Tan. I don't know if our audience even knows what we want to do with Black and Tan.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
We're all about getting down to our why. Like that. So this is perfect.
We Donald and I, we started this thing as kind of like a joke to each other, really. Hey, we should start a podcast, and we did. What should we call it? Black and Tan 0.0075% faster. And everyone's like, oh, because we got a black guy and a white guy. No, actually, it was a Paul Lavelli joke, because when he was racing the Mass Series, I did pretty well for 6 races. And somebody walked up to me and they said, well, you know, what's your secret? I said, oh, those black and tan tires are 0.0075% faster. And you can spew out data to almost anybody and they'll believe you. They won't fact check you. So I said, how about that for a name? And Donald said, yeah. And then it's kind of taken off more than I guess we expected. I think we're in episode 17 or something like that, Donald. I'm not sure, but we've had a lot of great conversations. And then people are saying, well, I want to invest. And for myself and certainly Donald, like, we want to give back. And when we talked about, and Donald and I, we do ride road, but our best times really are on the mountain bike, on the dirt. When he finally has a mountain bike, and he's again a mountain bike rider finally. Yeah, but it was a while. He was with that. We have our best times on the dirt, and we want to give back. And so, you know, when people are talking about giving us money, we don't need the money. We want the money to go to youth in growing cycling. And NICA is, you know, it checks both those boxes for us. And so when we talked a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, like when people said, we want to invest, I'm like, well, we're going to be a not-for-profit eventually. And we're going to give the money back to the kids and grow cycling.
Right.
That's what we want to do. That's our why for doing this.
Our why is 100% to give back to you guys. We would love, me and Paul were talking, we were like, man, it would be, how cool would it be to be able to write a $1,000 check or so and just say, here you go, this is for NICA, this is for BYC, this is for those, you know, that's what we want to do. That's our why when it comes to, you know, Black and Tan. So when we're going to start selling merch, we're going to have jerseys, we're going to have hats, we're going to have this and that. The profit that we make off of our merch and off of anything with those, it's going to go out to youth cycling, whether it be NICA, whether it be BYC, but it's going to go back to youth cycling and developing youth cycling. So that's our why. And when Paul brought it up, I was like, hell yeah, that's exactly what we should do.
And you know, and I don't want to belittle the point of growing. Like, we have to grow our sport. These kids that you guys are coaching now are going to be voters. They're going to decide whether they're safe bike lanes to ride on. They're going to decide whether we develop every ounce of acreage or whether we can use it as a natural or, you know, for mountain biking. So if we don't grow our sport, we won't have a sport. It is, I mean, I think not only what you guys are doing important, it's critical to us having places to ride later on. Bottom line.
Well, I mean, part of our mission, right? We'll say this till we're blue in the face. It's not to develop fast racers, right? Our mission is to get kids to fall in love with the bike, whether they race or not. You know, take that love and carry it into college, right? Ride your bike to and from class, ride your bike to and from work when you graduate. Use that bike as a mode of transportation. It could be, you know, get a cargo bike. Never buy a car. Like, that's what I want. That's what I want to see coming from our league, is just kids falling in love with the bike and the activity of cycling itself.
I respect it. I mean, I
Never buy a car unless it's a fast Audi. We're going to have an exception to that rule. Anyway, go ahead.
talk about that later. That's another show.
That's a great, I mean, I love what you guys are doing. I do have more questions though, and I know the answer, but I want to ask like I don't know the answer. So are there chapters? Are there teams within chapters? What's the structure?
Yeah, it's kind of built like a rec sports program. There are teams all around the state. There's a few types of NICA teams. Teams can be composite teams, which means they're geographically based, and they may have kids from several different schools, or they could be a school-based team where most of the kids or all the kids are just from one school. Anybody can start a team. It takes one student and one adult just to get a team started and off the ground. We really feel like the state overall is ripe for more teams to get started. So if you're watching and curious and maybe thinking it might be fun to start a team, we'd love to talk to you about it. But yeah, there's not a lot of investment to get something off the ground. There is some training involved. It's around, I think we worked this out in a rubric. It's around like 4 hours total of training to be a level 1 coach, and that's like broken up over completing a couple of online courses and doing a background check and like signing a code of conduct and some other pieces. So it's really, the bar is very low to get started and involved.
Just so I don't forget, how do I get in touch with you, John? I mean, I know how I get in touch with you, but if I'm listening or I'm on YouTube later, and Donald will put some stuff in the notes for the episode, but like right now, can I just jump online, NICA Press Maryland, and find you guys? Is that how it works?
Yes, you could Google NICA Maryland and you'd find us right away. We've got a website, marylandmtb.org, that's also going to lead you right to us.
Great. All right, some other personal questions. Fred, your favorite place you've ridden your mountain bike? Favorite place you've ridden your mountain bike?
Place I've ridden, Patapsco Valley State Park. Hands down.
I say the same thing. People think I'm lying.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm lying.
I've ridden my bike a lot of places, but
I think
Patapsco offers everything.
Where else?
I think
Where else have you ridden? Where else? Tell us.
So, growing up racing, I've raced all up and down the East Coast, Vermont, New York, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Been out west to Oregon to ride. Never ridden in Colorado, but plenty of friends have gone out there. But like, yeah, I know people that have ridden in Colorado have come back to ride Patapsco, and they're like, thank God, like these like trails, you know, like trees. So I don't want to belittle any place that I haven't been, but yeah, it's just a bit for what we have to offer here at Patapsco as far as the quantity of trails and just miles, the varying terrain, the technical aspects of it, the flow aspects of it, the fact that I don't have to load up my car, I can go right out my front door, like that's a benefit. But
being in an urban environment, but you can go for 10 minutes down the trail and close your eyes and you may feel like you're somewhere in a forest in like Washington State somewhere. You can't, I mean, realistically in our park you can still hear a car. Even if you're in the middle of places where you're right. But I mean it's the weirdest thing, man, that we're like 10 minutes from Baltimore, 20 minutes from DC, and we have some of the best trails.
Driving 20 minutes from DC.
Right. If we have some
very fast out here. Anyway,
we have some of the best trails. If we're just talking trails, I get it. There's different scenery everywhere, but if we're just talking trails, I agree with Fred 100%. Our trail system is almost there. I haven't been on another one that's that extensive and gives you everything that we have to offer.
Fred, if you're going out in the morning and you want to do an hour and a half a good technical ride, what's your route there in Patapsco?
Well, for one, let's I don't enjoy technical riding.
Yeah, that's
So
something you
when it
never
comes
do.
to mountain biking and on that spectrum, John and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum. I was a cross country.
I'm going to get to him. Go ahead.
I enjoy flow. So about as technical, I mean, if you go north to the Daniels area, like that's technical enough for me. I don't need anything more than that. Yeah, when I used to sell bikes, I would always ask people, are you an alpine skier or a Nordic skier? Because that will depend on what bike I sell you. And I'm totally on the Nordic ski spectrum. I'm not an alpine.
I get it.
When I was on social media, I think my bio said too risk-averse to send it. So.
But again, let's talk about everybody in Patapsco. If you ride our park and you ride it well, you're a technical rider. Period. I'm telling you that right now. You can ride roots, you can ride rock, You can ride loose soil. You're a technical rider. Whether you want to admit it or not, you can ride Patapsco. You can go anywhere in the world and do okay.
Yeah, it's relative. It is. It's relativity there. So.
Ah, what's the favorite place you've ever ridden?
Man, I was afraid you were going to ask me the same thing. I think it has to be Michaud State Forest. It's just so brutal. It's like I've suffered mightily on those rocks and enjoyed every second. It's just like a next level planet of tech. Some of the trails up there, like 3 Mile Trail and Graves Ridge, and I think too the Michaud series, which was one of the longest running series anywhere in this area. Those races were so epic and formative for me as I grew up and raced them for years and years and years. I loved them, and that's my top choice.
Michaud, for people that don't know, just take rocks and throw them down the trail. And if you like your bike not to have scratches on it, and you like to ride a free bike, you do not go ride Michaud, because there's no way that you're not coming out, especially with newer carbon rims and stuff like that. Oh, your rims are shot. They're gone. They're going to be scratched up, beat up. John's a very, so in our park, in our pond, John's one of the most technical riders that we have in the Patapsco State Park. When a tree falls down, John will get personal text on Facebook, and everybody has to tell John, you got to go make a video of you bunny hopping over this tree. That's what John does. So, or if a super technical line opens up going up a hill, everybody wants to know if there's a handful of people that don't contact. They're like, can you ride this line? John is one of those people in that post that they're going to call out. We got to see John try to ride. John's super technical.
Donald, does he pucker at all on the new trail?
No.
Does nothing?
No. He doesn't. He's not, dude.
I pucker sometimes. Let me tell you about a recent pucker that I experienced. There was recently a league director meeting at the Trek headquarters in Waterloo, and the league director for the Montana League is a young man named Sam Schultz. When I managed the Trek World Cup team, Sam was a new up-and-coming pro rider on the Gary Fisher team, which was like our sister team. So I knew Sam 20 years ago when he was just a junior coming into the pro ranks. Sam went on to be an Olympian, cross-country racer, and then went on to the Rocky Mountain Fro Riders professional freeride team. So we're riding down these Trek trails, and there's a quick fork that bangs a left and goes into these very large sets of double dirt jumps. Donald, thank you for describing my technical abilities as very high, but my jumping abilities are below the screen. I'm holding my hand down where they are. So we go down this trail, and Sam just launches up into the stratospheric level in front of me, and I'm just grabbing fistfuls of brake, like, holy crap, I'm not going off of that jump. A full pucker.
But if we're talking more trial style moves, getting over things that people wouldn't think that someone could ride a bike over.
Yeah.
But not necessarily trials riding, still more flowing going forward. John's the man. John's the man.
Yeah, I like to get over stuff and through stuff. Just not leave.
What's your typical? Where do you typically spend time in Patapsco? Where do you like to go?
Oh gosh. Honestly, there's a little stretch of trail that is actually right behind my house. I don't even know if it has a name, but it's like a chunk of Michaud landed in my backyard. It's just a brutally rock-strewn stretch of trail that goes up from a stream bed. It's crazy rocky and challenging.
You and I have ridden it, Paul. You and I have ridden it for sure. I don't know exactly the day, but I remember us going exploring over near Hilltop. and we dove into a trail off the side of the road, and we went down, crossed this like this bridge, like this
wooden bridge.
Yeah, we crossed this bridge, and all of a sudden, uphill, it was all rock and big chunky rock, and it was like, all right, yeah, I can tell this is pretty sketchy.
Yeah,
Pretty sketchy trail, not my kind of trail. Let's get off.
So John and I live 3 doors apart. We live in the same neighborhood, and whenever we do rides together, if we start the ride off through his backyard, I immediately know where we're going, and I hate my life decisions.
He cringes.
Yeah, but the other direction, I'm okay.
They're real riders. These guys are real riders. There's been so many mornings where I'd be out riding and I'd run into Fred just cruising on the Gristmill Trail. Even when there was a time when you were going through, you had like a wrist injury or hand injury or something like that. You couldn't really ride mountain bikes that much. But you would get out in the mornings and still ride your road bike and I would run into you all the time. And, we'd ride a couple miles together or whatever else. But they're real riders. That's what I love about them. Like I tell you that all the time. I don't put anyone's riding skills above the next or anybody's reasons to ride above the next person's ride. As long as you ride, it's all the same to me. And these guys are riders for sure.
Fred, what are you riding?
What am I riding? Well, you have to understand, like, for about 10 to 15 years, I rode a rigid single speed. And it was only 3 years ago where I bought my first full suspension bike.
Finally got him to see the light.
And through NICA, Trek has been very generous in helping me to get formed. So I kind of felt like obligated to kind of lean that direction. And I ended up with the Trek Fuel EX 9.8. And it was one of those moments, you're like, first time down the trail, I'm like, why did I wait so long to do this? Like, this feels really good. But every bike these days are good. But yeah, right now I'm on a Trek. But I can tell you that I just took a Steel Visago hardtail and kind of converted it into like a gravel bike.
Yeah.
And that is fast.
Yeah.
My favorite bike to ride now.
No doubt.
I'm
I get it.
42 millimeter tires and loving it. Drop bars.
Your turn. What do you ride?
I'm currently riding a Santa Cruz Tallboy CC. I kind of fell into that bike accidentally, but I've really enjoyed riding it, and it's been the right bike for me lately.
Have either one of you taken your cross bike into the trails of Patapsco?
Oh, I got a good story. This is one of those mornings where I ran into Don. I had a Surly steamroller that I put cross tires on. So I was riding a brakeless fixed gear cyclocross bike through Patapsco. And I remember coming across Don and him staring at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I have no idea. He's like, you're crazy. And it was the only time I did it. I mean, because it was crazy.
I want to one up you.
But yes.
I want to one up you. I have taken my brakeless fixie track bike, my Columbus Thron to Di Bernardi track bike with Campy Pista Group into the Patapsco trails many times, and I giggle out loud when I ride that thing in the woods. Something I gotta make a fetish confession. I've got a fetish for taking the wrong bike out on a ride. I love doing that.
So there's a reason that Paul brought this up.
Okay.
So I'm not normally, like I said, I would consider myself more of a technical rider than a fast rider. Paul convinced me to take a cyclocross bike, one of his cyclocross bikes, into the trails. Dude, I thought I was going to kill myself there. I said, I would never, no, it's not a good feeling. I said, I'm never doing this again. Never. There were so many times where I'm like, crap, I'm like literally going to crash right now. Meanwhile, Paul's giggling. He's a fast cyclocross rider. He's used to the cyclocross bike more than I am. He was destroying me. That was one of the scariest in the last 10 years. That was probably one of the scariest rides I've had, where I was like, that's it, I'm never doing this again.
Fred and John, full disclosure, my goal was to be a better descender in mountain biking. So my ass was kicked the entire summer of trying to stay on his wheel going downhill. And I got a little get back for an hour and a half. I've never been more scared on a bike. It was hysterical. I'm like, you gotta be.
I had no traction, no brakes, trying to hold on to his wheel, going around every corner. I just felt like every corner was like the last corner. If I go around any other corner any faster, I'm going to crash. And I looked up and I'm like, shit, I'm not even going fast. It just amplifies everything that's bad. It's amplified. But yeah, that's where that came from, by the way. That's where you wanted to know if has anyone else ridden in the woods on a cyclocross bike.
I haven't ridden it on a track bike yet, but apparently it's a thing.
I highly don't recommend. I don't recommend anybody that's watching this to ride a track bike, especially in Patapsco. That's not a good way to do it.
So when I met Don, when I was on that brakeless fixed gear cyclocross bike, I had come down Drugs. So if anybody's familiar, the trail of Drugs is very steep, very rocky. I mean, I was halfway down, and I had already made my mind up that I was never going to do it again. Like, this was just a dumb idea, but I just followed through with it. I don't like to give up on things, so.
Fred, I think the mosh pit did some bad things to your head. I'm just,
Yeah.
your punk rock days. Whew, I don't like going down Drugs on a full suspension. Certainly not on a wow. That's a challenge.
One trail that'll let you go as fast as you want, and I call it it'll give you as much rope as you need to hang yourself.
Yeah, there was a lot of track bike skidding.
Where's the one place, Fred, you want to ride that you haven't ridden yet?
I'm going to say it's not mountain bike related, but I want to do the Strada Bianchi. I want to go to Tuscany.
Definitely where it's going to sit. I knew it was somewhere around there. Something
I
like
knew
that.
it was exactly that ride. Yeah, I mean, every year when I watch that race, I'm like, yeah, I need to get over there.
I get it.
Yeah, we had a core staff member who went over this year and did the rides before the race, and it's part of a tour group. And the pictures and stories he was telling me, I was like, yeah, I definitely got to get over there.
I think if you're really in the cycling, you need to find one of those European rides and go, if not ride it, at least experience it, because it's a different level. I've gone to watch the tour twice, and I've ridden in the Alps twice, and each time it's mind blowing.
Yeah, if that's 1A, 1B would be Cape Town, South Africa. I watch the Cape Epic every year, and I'm just blown away with the scenery there.
That's more mountain bike, though.
Yeah, that's not totally mountain bike, but that race is fascinating to watch. That's one just nice to have on the TV just for the scenery. You had the sound down, and my wife doesn't even mind because the helicopter shots are amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful race.
And how about you? Where's the one place you want to ride?
And I really want to do a mega avalanche ride.
Cool.
I love snow rides.
Of course.
I love snow rides. I love sliding around and just making your bike go where it wants to go, even though it's fighting you. The prospect of doing that in a pack of 300 people makes it that much more exciting for me. So I see those mega avalanche races, and I'm like, man, I would love to do that.
Look it up. It's mega avalanche race. Just look up bicycle mega avalanche race. I promise you, when you see how these start off,
You'll wonder why I want to do that. But
well, after the conversation we just had, no one's going to wonder why you want to do it. I think by now everybody gets where you are, but I think most people look at it and go, "There's no way in the world that I want to be part of this."
John, are you married?
yeah, married with kids. I met my wife because her boyfriend brought her into the bike shop where I worked to buy a bike.
He's down with challenges. He's down with challenges.
Oh,
Sold her first road bike.
I can't even ask another question.
I I sold her her first road bike, and we became friends. And once she was single, I gave her the full court press and converted her successfully into a mountain biker.
Did becoming single have anything to do with you?
You know, I would like to say that it did not, because I tried to take the honorable line there. I asked her if it was her boyfriend, and she was like, yes. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. I'm going to stop here. And we were friends.
You did. The next, you're not telling the next question. Does he do downhill avalanche? And she said no, and you just shrugged your shoulders.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I don't know what.
Don't have your mother.
Donald, we're running out of time. I want to give these guys an opportunity to plug themselves again and draw. You know, originally, you know, we had them on for the relationship for NICA, but we need to mountain bike with them. We haven't done that yet. We need to make that happen.
For sure. I'm glad you stated that publicly on this podcast, so we can make sure we hold to it.
There you go.
Good accountability.
He's finally a mountain biker again, John. Finally, it took a while.
Beautiful bike.
I've ridden mountain bikes with this guy.
Yeah.
What color is it?
It's Celeste green, basically, like that. Yeah.
Oh, is that one you had in the video?
Yeah, man. It's I built super light stealth jumpers, basically what I did. Again, being 50 years old, I don't necessarily like to fly the way I used to. I try to kind of keep it on the ground. So, yeah, I built a nice bike.
Yeah, and I think I fell into the same trap you did, because I bought that Fuel EX, and it's just a heavy cross-country race bike now. That's all.
Yeah.
So they drop the post off.
Yeah.
Stem is slammed.
Yeah.
So.
Guys, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're going to get that ride in, I promise you. When I get back to town, we're going to put it on the calendar, make it happen. But again, you guys talk a little bit. How do I get in touch with you? Last plug from NICA.
MarylandMTB.org. You can find even our email contacts there if you want to reach out directly with any questions. And John mentioned it in one of our early videos. It's probably on the website somewhere. Like, if you've never been to a race, just come out to watch. Like, you'll be hooked. Like Don was, man. Once you see the production value,
and likes.
it's
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, I'll take it back just real quick to something that came out earlier, which was, I don't remember if it was you that said it, bikes changed my life. I can't tell you how many people I've heard that from. And I bet if all of you think about it, you'll realize that you've heard it from a lot of people too. And that's what this is all about, is
100%.
using these tools to change lives.
Yeah.
Because
I have lifelong friends. Friends that are like friends for life now, all through cycling. And again, I want to thank everybody that's been watching. I want to thank these two guys for coming on. This is probably one of my favorite ones, by the way. This is one of my favorite ones. This one, Andre's that we did with Andre. This is close, man. This is a good one. I like this one.
Talking about bikes is almost as much fun as riding bikes.
That's true. That's true. Paul, I miss you. We'll catch up.
We will.
Bye, guys.
Safe home, Paul.
Thanks. Peace and love.